Welcome back to Bridges. We are talking to Elgin Rogers, a political analyst, local political analyst, about the importance of voting and why people are less inclined or seem to be less inclined to vote this election than others. You know, your hesitance in giving me an answer as to who you think might win between Romney and Obama makes me think, and perhaps I'm incorrect, that Obama's losing a bit of his appeal this year.
No, Donnie, don't look too far into it. Part of it is this part that because I am active in the community and I'm out helping people register to vote and educating people on the issues, it's very important that I still remain nonpartisan in a lot of the things that I think, and I keep them to myself so that I don't dissuade others from the voting process.
And that's fair. That's absolutely fair. But let's talk about Obama's appeal. Okay. Do you think that Obama is as attractive as a candidate this year as he was before?
Yes.
Do you?
In contrast to what we're looking at, Mitt Romney.
And I was going to ask you about Mitt Romney as well. Let's start with Obama. Why do you think, given the struggle that Obama has had maintaining high ratings in the polls, how can you say that you think he's still as attractive? What makes you think that he's still as attractive?
That word on itself, attractive, it's very subjective, right? Because when we think about being attractive, from 2008, no, we don't see the same momentum, the same energy, right? Because Obama was fresh. He was fresh in the eyes of many. This guy came out of nowhere, right? People think he came out of nowhere. He came out of nowhere, right, to have an opportunity to be the president of the United States. Not only just the president, but the first African-American president of the United States. He is essentially American royalty, him and his family now, right? He'll be in the halls of justice and the Congress, right, forever. So that was the momentum that pushed people to come out and participate in the last 2008 presidential election.
So they were invested in not only hope for change, but they were also, especially folks of color who supported him more than 90%, were invested in having the first black president. Yes, and that's gone away.
No, I can't say that it's gone away, right?
It's just diminished.
Reduced.
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 Reduced. Okay.
All right. Reduced in the sense that he doesn't have the same ground roots portion as he had to have before. He told you, before I was the candidate, but now I'm the president. So to me that says that things have changed. The way we move is a little bit different now. And I think that's what we're seeing. I don't necessarily know if it's people that he's less attractive, but people are acting in different roles and different responsibilities now.
Okay. What about Romney? What makes Romney so attractive?
What makes Romney attractive, and again, attractive,
which, and despite the fact that he's had a half dozen verbal missteps in the past couple of months, a recent one that was pretty significant. What makes him so attractive still?
Again, attractive is based on the eyes and perspective, right? For many in the Latino and African American community, Mitt Romney, I don't think he has that same attraction as a Barack Obama. But what Mitt Romney does have, he has a conservative backing that finds him very attractive just because he's the anti to Obama, which makes him very attractive.
Well, actually, you know, some would disagree with you in the diminished, I think, attractiveness, the diminished way that you describe him. Okay. He actually brings to the table an awful lot. He's a businessman. He talks about the American dream. He talks about pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. You know, he talks about working hard and being able to succeed if you work hard. All of those are the things that I think people want to hear. You would not agree with that?
I think that when you say that about Mitt Romney, I think there's an old saying, judge a tree by the fruit that it bears, right? So the American dream is to put Americans back to work, not to build American uniforms or Olympic uniforms and outsource to China, right? So he says it, but is he walking the walk? And I think people see through that. Now, because of his political expertise and his experiences, I think Mitt Romney still he's a formidable candidate. It makes him a formidable candidate for those reasons, but people are looking past that. They're seeing through that, just the rhetoric, if you will.
You know, one of the things that really surprised me about this election in terms of Mitt Romney is that even though, you know, the fundamental focus of this country in terms of economics is capitalism, Yet Mitt Romney gets blamed almost, he gets penalized almost for being wealthy. Does that make sense?
On the face, no, Donnie, it doesn't make sense, but I think what people are really concerned about, are you getting wealthy because you're playing by the same rules that everyone else is playing? And so there's the underlying factor that people are believing that maybe his wealth is not acquired by his playing by the same rules. And part of the American dream and the American ethos is that we all play by the same rules, we work hard, and that's how we earn, and that's how we build wealth in this country. And
so you're talking about allegations of offshore banking and international investment and that sort of thing.
Donnie, you're familiar with the issues.
None of that is illegal, but it's not a good look.
No,
is that what you're saying?
It's not a good look, but again, we're talking about values and visions,
right? Okay.
And those don't represent the values that we say America stands upon.
Okay, yeah. All right. There's been a lot of discussion about the lack of diversity in being able to get issues in front of these candidates. You know, there was this recent discussion about Univision, the primarily Latino news station, being unable to acquire the debate between the candidates. And lots of folks, Gwen Ifill, the NAACP, lots of people stood up and said, we are not reaching these populations the way we should reach them. We are not including media minority in the debate process the way we should. Both campaigns have responded by saying, we just couldn't get it done. Is that a good answer? When you consider the significant import that Latinos are going to bring to this election?
Well, Donnie, the only way we'll know if it's a good answer, right, the voters will ultimately decide, right? But the answer that, I don't know if it's practical, but again, the voters will ultimately decide. If you're not reaching those people who support you or those people who share your visions and values, they will ultimately decide.
Okay, so for you, it really just comes down to the vision and values piece.
It comes down to vision, values, and voting. That's what it comes down to.
You're working, speaking of voting, you're working with a group.
Yes.
We've got just a few minutes left.
Okay.
Do you want to talk about them a little bit?
I'd like to talk about the Ohio Unity Coalition. The coalition, it's a coalition of the NAACP, the Teamsters, and other organizations throughout the state who are going into low-income and African-American and Latino communities, trying to get people and urge people to register to vote. And not only just register to vote, but to also verify their vote. So you may have been registered before, but you may have moved, and that affects your voting status. One thing that we're finding that people are being purged from their voter rolls. And what purged means is that you may have voted before, and you may have missed an election or two, and so now you're kicked off without notice, or you may have received a piece of mail that you had to respond back to verify your voter status, and you didn't respond back either because you moved or because you just...
Is this a change in the rule or change in the process, or has it always been done this way?
It's been done this way, Donnie, but now the gains that have been made over the last 50 years in voting rights are being challenged, and they're being challenged in the way that are pretty much race neutral or bias neutral, if you will, but there's an ultimate message that's being sent.
And that message is? That
message is people in Latino and African American and low income communities, your voice is stronger than what you can imagine, and we don't even want you a part of this process.
You know, it's really interesting. I wish we'd gotten to this a little earlier. It's really interesting. We had Pete Gerken on, Commissioner Pete Gerken, who stands by his position that voter suppression is happening in this county. We had Chair of the Republican Party on, John Steinbrook, who says that it absolutely is not. What's your position as part of somebody out here who's watching?
I've actually seen it happen in my own life. We checked the voter. We verified my stepmom's status the other day, right? She's bedridden, but she has her right mind, right? She votes, but she missed the last election. They kicked her off. They dropped her. So when we looked at her voting status, it said dropped. And I was outraged. I was outraged because that's a right that we have, not only just as individuals, but as American citizens, and no one should be allowed to challenge that or take that away.
Right, but there's something that can be done about that. It's important. The reason we're doing this show today is to express, again, how important it is for you to get out and vote. Nothing changes without your vote, and it's very, very important. especially for folks who are younger and just learning this process, you need to understand that everything that happens in this country is based on politics, absolutely everything. And there are ways to protect your right to vote.
There are ways to protect your right to vote. First of all, know your status. Know whether or not you are a registered voter. When people ask you, I know sometimes it seems like an inconvenience, when they ask, are you registered to vote? You say yes, right? You may not be, but you say yes. Check. Start verifying. Know your status. Know your status. Know your voting status.
Okay, that's really, and you guys are getting people registered to vote, talking about the importance of voting. Got a great little shirt there that we might want to hold up. Again, the group is the Ohio Unity Coalition. Their address is 1001 Indiana Avenue. And if you want to talk more to them about this particular issue, please dial 1-888-614-0844. Thank you so much for joining us, and especially your opinions about the importance of the young vote. I appreciate that, and the importance of this particular initiative by the Ohio Unity Coalition. We're going to go away. We'll be back in just a second. Don't go anywhere.